You have seen our game-by-game predictions for every single SEC team. And now it is time to bring you our 2019 SEC Conference recap with our projected standings going into this season. And as you can see, each division will actually be fairly competitive in 2019. Yes, you have your front runners in the West with Alabama and your front runner in the East with Georgia, but each will have a little bit more competition than maybe we've seen in years past, with the likes of Florida and maybe Missouri challenging Georgia for that number one spot, and the likes of LSU and maybe even A&M challenging Alabama for that one spot in the West. And we'll break down the West side first, and it's no surprise to see that we have Alabama coming out of the West as champions at 12-0 and 8-0 in SEC Conference play. No surprise there. You could really name the 2019 season the Alabama Revenge Tour. The way they ended 2018 was not how they wanted. A 28-point loss to Clemson in the national championship game. They're going to be back and even better than ever. Nick Saban's back, and as long as he's there, Alabama's going to be competitive. Tua Tagovailoa is back as one of the best quarterbacks in the entire nation. Absolutely the best quarterback in the SEC. Still going to have one of the best wide receiver corps in the nation and a defense that continues to reload. So I'm not really too worried about Alabama. A couple trap games on their schedule. Obviously LSU, their toughest test out of the West. A road game against A&M could be scary for them as well. Maybe even a road game against South Carolina out of the East. But I still think Saban gets the Tide to a perfect undefeated record and a berth in the SEC title game. Then we have LSU coming in second at 11-1 and 7-1. So once again, seeing how important that game is between the Tide and the Tigers. If LSU wins that game, I have them going undefeated and winning the SEC West. That's how good I think this LSU team is in 2019. Their offense is going to be even better than they were last year in year two with Joe Burrow at the helm, and their defense, especially their secondary with Grant Delpit, Christian Fulton, and Derek Stingley, is going to be one of the best in the entire nation and absolutely the best in the SEC. Ed Orgeron continues to do a great job with the Tigers down in Baton Rouge, and an 11-1 record, which includes a win over Texas and Austin, will be good enough to get them into a New Year's Six bowl game and could be good enough to get them into the college football playoff despite not even playing in the SEC title game. Then we have Texas A&M coming in at third, 8-4, 5-3 in SEC play. Have one of the toughest schedules in the entire nation going into 2019. I think it's the top 5 toughest schedule in the nation. They have to face Alabama and Clemson and Georgia, and of course on the road against LSU as well. So one of the toughest schedules by far. But Jimbo Fisher is building something in College Station. I like the talent that he has this year, especially on offense with Kellen Mond and his crew of wide receivers. And I said under normal circumstances, that team could very well contend for a spot in the top 2 or maybe even a chance to win the West. But with this tough of a schedule, I don't see A&M improving by that much, but they still have a chance at their second straight 9-win season in year 2 under Jimbo Fisher. Then we have Auburn coming in at 4th with a 7-5 record, the same as Mississippi State, but they own a 1-game edge in conference play over the Bulldogs. Now, I'm sure a lot of people will disagree with Auburn being this low in the standings. But once again, they face a difficult schedule and have questions at quarterback, whether it will be Joey Gatewood or Bo Nix. That still remains to be seen. But a tough game against Oregon to kick off the season at a neutral site. Of course, playing Georgia and Alabama and LSU and Texas A&M. A few of those on the road as well. Go watch our game-by-game predictions. You'll see which ones that we have Auburn winning and losing in that series. But you look at this Auburn team, and this is not, to me, it does not look like a team that's going to compete for an SEC West title, for an SEC title, much like they did in 2017 with a very similar record. They will have the best defensive line in the SEC, maybe one of the best defensive lines in the entire nation, but it will be a disappointing year for the Tigers and could very well spell the end of the Gus Malzahn era at Auburn. Mississippi State, once again disappointing in year 2 under Joe Moorhead, went just 8-5 last year in a season they wanted to win 9 or 10 games and should have with the talent that they had. Now in year 2, have a quarterback battle between Keaton Thompson or Tommy Stevens, the transfer from Penn State. Stevens will more than likely get the job. I believe Thompson's the better fit, but Stevens will more than likely get the job. But with the losses that they have on the defensive side of the ball, a lot of NFL talent leaving after last season, I think Mississippi State takes a step back, losing record in conference play, but another chance at an 8-win season. And then in the cellar of the SEC West, no surprise to see Arkansas and Ole Miss. That game in week 2 between the Razorbacks and the Rebels, being in Oxford will probably decide who finishes last in the West and who finishes second to last. Both will be huge for two teams that really want to get to the postseason, desperately need to get to the postseason. We have the Razorbacks, though, winning that game in Oxford due to the experience over the Rebels, who only returned 3 starters on offense and have to break in a new quarterback in Matt Corral. I think Chad Morris's team really improves in 2019, will be much more competitive. The Hogs go 5-7, 1-7 in conference play. Ole Miss 4-8, 1-7 in conference play. A very disappointing year for Matt Luke and his squad in their first year without their bowl ban. Coming over to the East, this is going to be a fun one. This is going to be a fun division to watch. We mentioned that Georgia is, of course, the heavy favorite, and that's why we have them at number 1. That's why we have Georgia winning the East. No doubt in my mind, that's what I believe will happen. I don't know if it, I think that's what's going to happen, in my opinion. You go watch our predictions. But Florida is a team that can sneak up and claim that East crown. Missouri is a team that could get in there if they can get that bowl ban lifted themselves. But Georgia is sitting at 11-1, 7-1 in conference. In my opinion, by far the best team in the SEC East. Jake Fromm, one of the best quarterbacks in the nation. Arguably one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC, probably just behind Tua Tagovailoa in that regard. DeAndre Swift, one of the top running backs in the SEC as well, and he returns one of the best offensive lines in the entire nation to run behind. And the defense, of course, with Kirby Smart as your head coach, going to remain dominant as it has been since Kirby Smart took over, I believe it was just 3 years ago. So 11-1, 7-1, a berth in the SEC title game, and we'll get to that in a second. But once again, absolutely a college football playoff contender. We have Florida coming in at second, 9-3, 5-3 in conference, tied exactly with Missouri for that number 2 spot. But we have the Gators going on the road and pulling off a mini upset of sorts, beating Missouri on the road, despite Missouri beating Florida at the Swamp by 21 points in 2018. I think the Gators get their revenge and go beat this Missouri team. But I think this Florida team has the potential to be better than they were in 2018. Where they won 10 games, including an annihilation of Michigan in the Peach Bowl in the first year under Dan Mullen. I think Felipe Franks takes a major step forward in year 2 under Dan Mullen's offense, and their defense will remain one of the best in the SEC. But there's a key 3-game stretch there with a road game against LSU, the neutral site game against Georgia, and of course a road game against South Carolina that I think will really define this Florida season and separate them from just another second-place finish in the East or show them as a legitimate East contender and maybe even a college football playoff contender. Those 3 games plus the road game at Missouri will truly define this Florida season. I had them losing most of those games, actually losing 3 of those 4 games that I just mentioned. That's why they have 3 conference losses and finishing second, 2 games behind Georgia. Missouri, of course, making headlines, as we mentioned, across the board for their bowl ban because of academic fraud, which I hope gets overturned. I believe it should get overturned, but also making bigger headlines because of the transfer quarterback and Kelly Bryant coming over from Clemson. He will make an immediate impact for this Missouri program, who really needed a brand new quarterback to step in after losing Drew Lock. He's the perfect fit. He's a dual threat guy that's going to make this Missouri offense super, super dangerous, maybe even more dangerous than they've been in years past. Larry Roundtree is back, a solid crew of wide receivers. The problem is, can Kelly Bryant spread the field well enough? He struggled with that at Clemson, struggled spreading the field through the air, was dominant on the ground, struggled a little bit through the air. He's got to improve on that at Missouri. But they are a 9 or 10 win team in 2019, no doubt in my mind. We've got them at 9-3, 5-3 in conference play. And if they get that bowl ban lifted, that could be good enough to get them into a New Year's Six bowl or absolutely a New Year's Day bowl. So 9-3 for the Tigers. Coming in at 4th, we have South Carolina at 7-5, tied overall record with Tennessee, but owning a 1-game edge in conference play over the Volunteers. Similar situation to what we have with Auburn and Mississippi State. The Gamecocks, like Texas A&M, in my opinion, are very similar because they both bring back a lot of talent. But the Gamecocks face the toughest schedule in the entire nation, while A&M faces a top 5 toughest schedule in the entire nation. I love Jake Bentley, and I love his crew of wide receivers that he brings back this season. This could be one of the best offenses South Carolina has had under Will Muschamp. Last year, they averaged over 30 points per game for the first time since 2014. And I expect those numbers to be better this year. Defensively, I think it's the best defense Muschamp has had going into his 4th year at Columbia. But with that schedule, 7-5 is probably the best case scenario for South Carolina. You might be able to up it to 8, but I don't see them winning any more than that. But still, a job well done with what they're having to go up against. Games against Alabama, Clemson, Georgia, on the road against Texas A&M, a Power 5 school in North Carolina, a trap game against Appalachian State, and of course Florida as well, since they are in the Eastern Division. Tennessee coming in at 7-5, 3-5, taking a major step forward in year 2 under Jeremy Pruitt, getting to a bowl game, a chance at an 8-win season. They're very young, but very experienced, returning 10 starters offensively, 6 starters defensively, owning one of the more underrated quarterbacks in the SEC in Jarrett Garantano. Kentucky coming in at 6-6, 2-6 in conference play, taking a 3-game step back in the regular season after going 9-3 in the regular season last year and then beating Penn State to finish 10-3. We have them going to 6-6. And I know a lot of people may disagree with that. But they lose Josh Allen defensively, the anchor of their defense last year, and they lose their all-time leading rusher in Benny Snell, who was really the biggest reason for Kentucky's success in 2019, because Terry Wilson was not that good through the air last year. And if he doesn't improve in year 2 at the helm, then Kentucky will struggle in 2019, much like we have them doing this year, just going 6-6, 2-6 in SEC conference play. But still good enough to go to a bowl game, and that's what Wildcat fans want and need in Lexington. They then have Vanderbilt coming in at last, 4-8, 1-7 in conference play. Could spell the end of the Derek Mason era in Nashville. They get in Riley Neal, the transfer quarterback from Ball State, to replace their all-time leading passer and Kyle Shermer. The defense should remain strong, but how quickly Riley Neal builds chemistry with a very talented group of wide receivers will be the key for Vanderbilt in 2019. There are a couple toss-up games in there that maybe Vanderbilt, if things go their way, they could slip in and get a win, maybe win 5 and get back to, or 6 and get back to a bowl game under Derek Mason. I just don't have it happening this season. It's going to be another bad year for the Commodores coming in at 4-8. And as you can see, it's no surprise that our SEC championship, our projected SEC championship, is once again Alabama and Georgia. Nick Saban versus Kirby Smart for the 3rd year in a row, 2 years ago meeting in the national championship game, and last year meeting in the SEC title game, with Alabama winning that game 35-28. An absolute thriller in Atlanta. And once again, you can expect an absolute thriller in year 2 of this meeting in the SEC title game. You've got Tua going up against Georgia's elite defense that really shut down Tua Tagovailoa, ended up hurting him, but then Jalen Hurts came in for some late game heroics. It really just came full circle last year in Atlanta. Well, Jalen Hurts is gone. He's not going to be able to come revive the Tide if they need him and if Tua struggles against this defense again. It's going to be back and forth the entire night, no doubt in my mind, but once again, I have Alabama besting Kirby Smart and the Bulldogs. The Crimson Tide will emerge as SEC champions once again under Nick Saban, 13-0, heading to the college football playoff. But if this game is as close as it was last year, Georgia, despite having 2 losses, will still be in the college football playoff discussion. Last year, they were number 4 in the country when they fell to Alabama in the SEC title game. They could have gotten in there and made a strong case to get in there despite losing in that title game. They can do the same thing this year in 2019. Expect another close game, but I think Tua comes in, kind of redeems himself for the poor performance. I know he got hurt, but the poor performances he had down the stretch last season, Alabama's defense steps it up here, and I think the Crimson Tide once again win the SEC championship. But once again, an absolute thriller between the Crimson Tide and the Bulldogs. So there you have it, our projected SEC standings for the 2019 season. Arguably the best conference in all of college football. Arguably the most exciting conference to watch in college football. And if these standings come out the way that we have them projected, you can bet your money it will be the most exciting conference in all of college football to watch. And I can't wait to see how it all plays out. Things kicking off on August 24th with the Gators facing off against their in-state rival in Miami to get the college football season started. So guys, as always, thank you for watching us here on YouTube. Go follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Gridiron Expert and check out our official website, thegridironexpert.com. Sign up for our newsletter and sign up for our expert picks. For just $30, you will receive every single one of our 2019 college football spread picks, including the postseason. Now, I can promise you that is a deal you do not want to pass up. So join our team, sign up today only at thegridironexpert.com. And once again, thank you for watching us here on YouTube. Please continue to like, comment, and subscribe. And we will see you next time on The Gridiron Expert.